a very similar situation has actually happened to my father.
Right.
On a parents' evening back in the day, back when I was still at school.
You were a baby.
And it was a secondary school maths teacher. And usually all the teachers that my parents have ever interacted with completely understand. But on that day, she extended her hand and my dad put his hand to his chest and bowed like, the custom is, and explained a little bit just to say, for religious reasons, I can't shake your hand. I hope that's okay. And she then said, she actually kicked off a bit. She turned around and said, actually, no, it's not. And it made it really awkward. And I saw, at that age even, I saw that as like someone demanding a physical touch greeting without consent.
Were you present at this?
I was there.
Yeah, because we used to do that at school. We'd go to parents' night. It wasn't just the parents that went.
Yeah. So I was with them and I witnessed this, and I was just seeing that as someone demanding a physical touch greeting. And even during COVID, like, take away the reason behind it. I think the reason behind it doesn't sit right with certain people for whatever reason that is. But if you think about it, what if someone's immunocompromised and they don't want to shake hands? Or what if someone's, just not comfortable for whatever reason? A woman, a man, whoever isn't comfortable with a physical touch.
Yeah, I've got friends who really hate them moi kissing people when they meet them. And I'm very comfortable with it because it certainly wasn't my norm growing up, but because I lived in Spain and France quite a bit in my teens and 20s, I just got used to it. That was just a quick peck on the cheek was part of meeting somebody, and as well as perhaps shaking their hand as well. And I know people who hate doing that. And they won't do it. That's nothing to do with being Muslim. That's just what you want to do or not.
Personal preference.
Yeah.
So whatever the reason, I think it's completely fine. It's not a snub to say, oh no, I can't shake her. And it's also no need to be sorry that you didn't know that, because why would you know that if that's not your culture? That's not you don't have to know.
Or even
that.
If you knew it and forgot because you've got your own norm.
If you knew it and you forgot, and and that's absolutely fine. And I think the apology thing, I'll give you the reason why that might have happened.
Go on.
Out of sheer awkwardness, out of sheer British values awkwardness, we do that. I do that. I say sorry when someone bumps into me. That's what we do.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was as someone stands on your feet and you say sorry, yeah.
3 words sort this out for me.
Go on.
They were taught to me from being an infant. When in Rome, there was a Romans do. Whenever I go abroad, I go to Turkey a lot of times. I've been probably around about 15 times. I've been to India half a dozen times. If ever I go anywhere and respect is needed to be shown by taking your shoes off or whatever, I conform. I expect that as a blunt-speaking Yorkshireman when it happens here. We have Western values, and when people come to the West, they should respect those values the same as a Westerner would respect Eastern values.
Even if, as in the case of Habiba's dad, even if it caused him distress to contravene his own cultural and religious rules.
Yes,
you would make him.
I mean, I was raised a Catholic, as you were, Sheila.
Yeah.
And the reason that I lapsed from Catholicism is mainly because of the strict doctrines. Now, there doesn't seem to be any deviation in Islam, and they're just so firm that they've got to follow this hardline doctrine, and it just leads to animosity and lack of respect.
Well, already we've had calls and texts from Muslim people, men who don't follow the handshake thing. So it's not it's rigid in some quarters, but not in others. So I think there is some deviation in the same way that there's deviation within most religions, and most religions have their strict elements, don't they?
But a Western journalist was made to feel...
We can't... no, hang on. We can't say what she felt. Only she can say what she felt.
Well, yeah. But I think we understand that there were a lot of pressure.
I think there are a couple of things that you said that the presenter was made to apologise. She wasn't made to apologise at all.
No, I said she clearly felt obliged to apologise herself in her own mind.
Which is respectful, right?
Could be, yeah.
Well, if you inadvertently break a cultural norm of a guest, I would consider it incumbent upon you to apologise. And I don't think that she lowered herself in any way. The other thing that I wanted to create an example of, we have certain behaviours in the West. I'm a British man. If I was to be introduced to the Queen, I wouldn't grab her hand and give her a cuddle, because that would be culturally inappropriate. So I understand why there has to be a distance between the monarch and her subjects. So the idea that there is some type of negative value attributed to a cultural custom that isn't similar to anything that we have in the West, I think is a problem, because lots of people would think that she was being demeaned rather than she was being placed on a pedestal. She was actually being placed on a pedestal as opposed to being treated like an ordinary person, as in a man.
Well, can I speak as a woman who's also a broadcaster, who's often been in situations like the one she was in? I understand everything you've said, Patrick. Of course I do. But there are two people involved in that exchange. And I would argue, and again, I'm not disputing what you feel about what happened and what you've said, because I understand the cultural norm that you're describing. But there's another cultural norm. And in Western Europe, the cultural norm is women. She wasn't at a disco, she wasn't at a wedding, she wasn't on a date. She was in a professional capacity as a broadcaster alongside her male equal colleagues doing their job. Mm-hmm. What you say is a pedestal. Do you understand? And I haven't spoken to Kate, so I don't know how she felt. But I personally, given that I've done exactly the job that she does, and been in many circumstances where I'm the only woman at the podium or in the room or whatever, I would have felt not respected. I think I would have felt not respected in that moment, but made to feel different, made to feel separate from everybody else in that room.
Can I respond to that? May I respond to that, please?
Yeah.
We can't put our feelings on other people's choices unless those feelings are demonstrably, intentionally negative.
In many cultures, men do not touch women because that's somebody else's queen. That's somebody else's queen. So that is a mark of respect. That is a mark of respect that you do not, without permission, or even with permission, if it's not a member of your family, you do not touch. Because in some cultures, it's constituted as being highly disrespectful. If you're an anchor, if you're a sports anchor, and you're commentating or anchoring on an event which has many Muslims, as I believe it was the passenger men has, and the other teams have Muslim players, and a lot of those players will not touch women either. So when you are anchoring in a sport where there are people from different cultures, it's incumbent upon you to increase your knowledge of what the cultural practices of those people are, because there's big stars.
Can I ask you?
Come from different cultures.
Can I ask you?
I'm not saying she's to blame.
Can I ask you a question?
But the thing is, there's a misunderstanding there.
I think
you're making a meal of it.
This is painful. Can I speak?
Yeah, go on then.
I've got a couple of questions. What if, because you said earlier, won't touch a woman because she's someone else's queen. What if you're nobody's queen? What if I'm just Sheila doing my job, no husband, no man taking charge of my life in any way, shape or form? What then?
Well, if Habib is married and he has his own queen, then he's not gonna touch another woman, is he?
But it's if he wasn't married,
that's
he's allowed to do anything he likes to me.
Well, he is actually. But,
I know, but if a man isn't, what are the rules then?
No, the thing is, there's a different ways of according respect in different people's upbringings. Yeah. So I think he was doing that according to his best.
I know
way
he was.
Ifty,
you're describing things to me that I have been at pains to describe to the listener, in case you're just repeating the description of what I've already described to the listener who may not have seen the video. And again, I'm at pains to say I know he clearly meant no offence, and clearly she meant no offence. What I'm trying to ask you is, if his cultural norm matters, then doesn't hers. That's all I'm saying to you. If his cultural norm matters, doesn't Kate's cultural norm matter? And the cultural norm of a Western European professional woman in her job is to shake the hand of a person who she meets.